Hey Jazz Nation, it's your boy Jersey Boy. We're back at it live again. Preseason's just ended, so we're getting to move into the regular season, but I want you guys to get a little bit of a breakdown with what happened over the course of the last 4 games. So here's our overall record. Of course, you guys know once you move into the regular season, it won't allow you to see the stats and all that kind of stuff anymore. But I'll give you guys the overall breakdown. So, of course, we got 2 dubs and 2 L's here. The Giants, they really smashed us all game, to be honest. We've just barely eked out 12 points. With the Falcons, it was an impressive win for us. We eked out a lot of our 21 of those points actually in the fourth quarter. We took a L to the Saints, which, to be honest, after looking at the roster, I really expected that to be much more of a blowout game with us taking an L. So I'll take the 6-11 loss, and then we just narrowly beat out the Eagles on the strength of our kicker for 4 quarters. So with that said, I want you guys to take a look at what's happened with our roster. I've made some trades. So starting off before we even like deep dive into everything, we have traded 4 of our players. So we no longer have Henry Anderson. We received a second round pick next year and a sixth and a seventh for this draft. Tremaine Johnson is also gone. We have a second in this draft and a sixth and a seventh for the next year. Kalichi Osemele is also no longer with us anymore. We have a third this year and a fifth and a seventh for next year. We also move on from Brian Winters. We have a second round pick next year, and we recovered a fifth and a sixth for this year. So, excuse me, sorry. We have a second and a fifth for next year and a sixth for this year. Had to look back on my notes. We also have some new additions. So we picked up Cody Whitehair, and we received a sixth round pick for this draft, and we provided the Bears with Robbie Anderson and a third round pick next year. The idea with this in mind was we want to start trying to figure out which pieces we're identifying as those that we're building around with our team. On the offensive line, I mentioned that the center position is super important to me, and I wanted somebody that was young enough to where they can still develop with the team as we move into that third, fourth year of his contract, and still experienced enough to where we already know what kind of player that we have. That way, we don't have huge fluctuations in performance. We also received Mackenzie Alexander in a player for player trade from the Vikings, sending Daryl Roberts over to them. It worked out both for both of us. They were moving on from Mackenzie. We have a young player that can potentially develop, and they are receiving a known veteran with the skill set that he has. We also picked up Tony Lippett, a cornerback in free agency, Obi Melanfonwu, the strong safety in free agency, and then we picked up Corey Grant. Now, generally, I only keep 2 quarterbacks. I did consider keeping 3 this time around, considering how bad the offensive line was. I also considered actually maybe letting Sam Darnold sit. However, he needs about as much game experience as he can get, so he'll have to take some bumps and bruises. If we do end up running into some injury problems, then I'll find somebody else that we can scoop up in free agency. In our backfield, we have a pretty solid tandem here. So we have Bell Powell, we have Corey Grant, the new addition, and then we have Ty Montgomery to round things out in the back end. Now, I think overall we won't have a lot of success with this stable. This is kind of setting us up for next year when we can officially improve a lot more pieces in this offense and along the line. We still don't have a fullback, so Ty Montgomery is going to man that role so he can still get some snaps. That should make fullback runs a little bit more interesting as well. And then, as mentioned, we don't have Anderson anymore. Jamison Crowder is technically our de facto number 1, although that title is going to belong to Quincy Enunwa because Jamison Crowder is our starting slot receiver. We have Eli Rogers to round them out, Josh Bellamy, Deontay Thompson as our veterans, and then we have a young Deontay Burnett who played with Sam Darnold in USC for a year. So they should give them some kind of chemistry bond when he is able to get on the field in the event we have to start digging deep into our pockets with our depth chart. Not a whole lot of changes here. Christopher Herndon still manning the starting spot. I did decide to pick up Nick O'Leary, and then we have Trayvon Wesco to help round out the back end while we see if he can develop. He's more of a blocking tight end at the moment, and he has a little bit of receiving ability, so we'll see what we can do with him. Kevin Beecham manning the first spot. I'm going to try to get Chuma Edoga as much experience as possible, see what we can do. But to be honest, he's probably somebody we may end up ultimately moving on from. He is going to man our left guard side though. So the idea in mind with this, instead of officially switching him over to that position, is that for one, he'll have more experience that he can gain, even though it's at the guard spot. Two, we need to try to make some part of our line at least somewhat capable of doing things. I chose the left side. So that gives us Beecham on the left, Edoga here. Of course, we have Cody White here, which is going to be the focal point of our line. And then we have Tom Compton, and then we have Brandon Shell. And Edoga's backing up a lot of spots as well. So he'll be getting plenty time. Leonard Williams still there. We're going to go with Kyle Fusi. Since he did do pretty well in preseason, he ended up having 2 sacks, handful of tackles, and limited experience. We're going to go with Nathan Shepard, who we rolled over. He actually tied with Leonard Williams for 3 sacks in the preseason, so very happy about what happened to him. We picked up Xavier Cooper as well in free agency to help round out the depth here. And then we have Fatukasi, who was originally one of our ends that we moved to his body size to the defensive tackle spot to give us a little bit more depth. And then moving into our linebacking core, not a whole lot of changes here. Jenkins still going to be our starter there. We're still rolling with CJ Mosley and Williamson here. And then we have Ja'Kai Polite, who I'm going to move into the starting role over Brandon Copeland because, for one, Polite may stick around a little bit more depending on what happens in the offseason. And then, two, Copeland doesn't really match the archetype for this particular position that we're looking for. He also isn't a scheme fit, which means it's going to take a lot longer to try to help develop him. So we'll have him backing us up. Brian Poole, same similar situation to a receiving position where Brian Poole is our starting cornerback. So Mackenzie Alexander is essentially the number 1 cornerback with Perry Nickerson playing the role of number 2 in addition to the backup slot cornerback. We have Tony Lippett, who we picked up, and then Blasan Austin, who did pretty decent, getting one of the 3 interceptions that we got in the preseason. So we'll see if we can't develop some of these younger pieces. Mackenzie Alexander is definitely going to be a staple for us moving forward, hopefully. Marcus May, no changes there. Doug Middleton backing him up, and then we're going to go ahead and have Brandon Bryan as the emergency there, and then Jamal Adams. Melifon Wu, I wanted a little bit better safety depth here, which is where he's coming into place. And then, of course, Brandon Bryan again. Kicker situation still the same. Canizaro, Edwards, we won't really worry about it too much, depending on how the season goes until the offseason comes up. Kick returner, we decided to go ahead and just stick with Crowder, although I don't really necessarily care for my starters to have to fill that role. We'll find somebody in the offseason, though. Le'Veon Bell's still going to man our third down spot, and hopefully Ty Montgomery can spell him here and there when needed. We're going to give him a break, though, because I don't want to run him into the wall, considering we're expecting this to be a bad season, by having Bilal Powell start off if there's a down and distance situation that's short, or, some of those clutch goal line plays. And then again, Jamison Crowder manning the slot position, Eli Rogers, and then Deontay Burnett manning the emergency position there, so we can try to get him as many snaps as possible just to kind of see what we might have in him. And then our slot cornerback position, Brian Poole, and then Perry Nickerson backing him up, and then Obi Melanfonwu behind him. Even though he's a better fit, I want to get Nickerson as much experience as possible so we can try to develop him as quickly as we can. Can't really beat out that speed and acceleration trait that we have here, so everything else is going to be kind of about building up his man-on-man coverage skills and stuff like that. So with that said, not really expecting any more trades or anything crazy to come up over the season. Now it's just a matter of, injuries hitting the team, who's developing, who's not. We still have one person that had a hidden development trait on our roster. and that is our young defensive tackle Quentin Williams here. So hopefully by mid-season or so, we'll find out what his actual potential is. He's already been developed once so far. Stats are looking pretty decent. Strong run blocking. He has some power moves, a little bit of finesse. And you can see in his traits that we have all the moves that we're looking for there. So I believe he's definitely going to be very well-rounded, and he should progress hopefully pretty quickly for us. We are focusing on developing him, Jamal Adams, and Sam Darnold for the entire season, pending any injuries. So those should be our standouts definitely moving forward into next season. And then just checking out our slate of games that we have coming up. We are looking in our first 4 weeks. We're going to be facing the Bills. We'll be tackling the Browns, and we'll be taking a look at the Patriots with a bye week in there, which is good because it gives us an early break, although we have a long slot of games coming right after that. If you see the first four right after, we're facing anywhere from above average to elite defenses. So this will be interesting to see how we adjust to a lot of that coming up, but we'll take it one game at a time, as the cliche says. So with that said, we can go ahead and take a look at the Bills roster real quick and see what they have going on. And then we'll go ahead and call this video a wrap. And I will get back to you guys probably after each game. Maybe I'll do a game or two and we'll just break it all down. Not fully decided yet. But with the Bills, of course, we're taking a look at Josh Allen. He has a crazy arm. You can see the 99 throw power there. Not the most accurate quarterback, so we'll see. But if he's launching bombs all games and those hit, could be problematic. In the same token, LaShawn McCoy, the veteran, they have Manning, they have Yeldon there, and then they have Devin Singletary, who has some burst to him. So it will be interesting to see how they're doing their substitutions and stuff there with who we might face. Patrick DeMarco, fullback. They're only going into the season with 4 receivers. Interesting ideal here. They don't necessarily have anybody that's game breaking, which is good news for us. And their top 2 receivers are more of kind of in the slot receiver mode. They do have Zay Jones here and Ray McLeod as hopefully some developmental prospects. I mean, they do have solid overalls, especially with some of their traits. Zay Jones is kind of the one that ends up being more of the possession style, but he has a little bit of speed to him. In the tight end game, we have to worry about Tyler Croft, Lee Smith, and Jason Kroom. So they have a decent stable of tight ends. What I'm concerned more so about is he does have some pretty good speed for his size, so he could cause some problems for us. But we have 2 really solid middle linebackers. Deion Dawkins on the left side, Quentin Spain, Mitch Morris. So they've really upgraded the line to try to help out Josh Allen as much as possible. Moving forward, we're going to see who ends up taking the reins of this division once we finally move up forward from Tom Brady and them. So this will be interesting. Defense has been their bread and butter for a while as well. So they have Shaq Lawson here with Trent Murphy, Jerry Hughes, Eddie Yarbrough. They have the young Ed Oliver Manning, the defensive tackle spot. So their version of our Quentin Williams, Harrison Phillips, Starlo Lele, all some pretty solid to spectacular names. And then in their linebacking core, it looks like they're lacking some depth here as well. So hopefully this is something we can take advantage of. Tremaine Edmonds in the middle, though, definitely potentially a problem for us. Maurice Alexander, Lorenzo Alexander. I potentially was going to trade for him, but I was trying to keep 2 younger style players. They do have Eli Harold, though, that's been in the wings trying to develop. And then in the cornerback spot, Tre'Davious White, probably going to end up shutting down at least one of our players. He's been pretty solid since he's come into the league. They have Levi Wallace, who's done a pretty good job as well in the season that he's been there. And then Teron Johnson, Micah Hyde roaming the deep safety, and Jordan Poyer running the middle 3/4 against the line. Is kind of a do-it-all strong safety for them. So we shall see how this works out. We don't really have the advantage in any of these games, so it's not necessarily worth mentioning where we think we can win out at, or who will end up beating us down, because anybody with even decent linemen or linebackers should be able to take advantage of our line. But we should see how some of these games shake out. With that said, though, guys, definitely please like, subscribe, comment, leave any feedback that you can. Tell all your friends. We'll definitely be looking to make this channel as much of a success as possible. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will get back to you guys once we've taken a look at how this game is shaking out for us and maybe what we can expect moving forward for the next 16 weeks. It's your boy Jersey Boy. I'm out. Peace.